Greetings and welcome to this episode of the Heal and Restore podcast.
Welcome.
We're the hostess from the Mostest, Miss Kathy Boyd here, and of course, myself, Randy.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome to this episode. Another exciting episode,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah. We're just like pushing through these Q&As from our listeners and our friends and our family. We've got another great one today.
Yeah. In fact, we're going to probably ask at the end of this to if anybody else has more things they'd like to hear about because we have pushed through just about every one of
Yeah,
the suggestions that have been given to
yeah.
us in the
That's
past.
good.
So we're ready for some more.
Yeah, and it's important to us that we speak on and we share our knowledge, our information, the things that we can study on the things that you want to hear about. So that's why
Yes.
this has been kind of a fun thing to do because you've asked the questions and we've done the research to come up with some answers, not only personally, but just in some of our own research as well.
Yeah. And again, we talked about a lot of things. And the one thing that when we work with clients, we tell them we're never going to suggest or ask anybody
Yeah,
to do anything that we haven't already done and experienced ourselves. We've had some bad experiences that we've learned from, but there's been a whole lot of good
yeah.
experiences that have changed our lives. And we realize you're not all us, but
There's always something. There's
it's
always,
a proven path
yeah,
that we talk about. We
yeah,
don't just come pull stuff out of the air.
yeah.
We're talking about proven paths.
Things that we've experienced, things that you've
Yes.
experienced. So, but today we have another question from Albert. Albert was great about, hi, Albert.
Hi, Albert. How you doing, Bubba?
He was great about posing a bunch of questions to us. And so this week we're going to talk about the question that Albert asked about, which is when is it time to let go
Good
of
question.
unhealthy relationships? Might be a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a family member, friends, etc. And then how can you do that without being rude or mean? I mean, I think that's the hardest thing. I think that's a lot of people think, oh, I need to let go of this, but then they're afraid of the conflict that comes with letting go. So we're
Yes.
going to jump into that, and we're going to talk about that. So I'm just going to take off by just saying, when we let go of these unhealthy relationships, whether it's your partner, maybe it's a family member, which we sometimes have to do. It could be a
I've
friend.
experienced myself.
Yeah, it can be challenging, but it's a very necessary step to your well-being. So it's important that we can recognize when the relationship has become toxic or harmful, and we have to be able to take action in a way that maintains our integrity, their integrity,
Yes.
with kindness as well.
Integrity is a key word.
Yeah, integrity is key, and it's integrity for you and integrity for the other person.
We
That is really
always
key.
we want to walk away from every conversation leaving the other person's integrity intact, no matter what they said or
Yeah.
done to us. No matter if they could have slandered us. That doesn't matter. We got to keep our side of the street clean.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to first talk about when is it time to let go of the relationship, and then we're going to talk about how we can do that without being
Yeah.
mean or rude. But
Yes.
there's a lot of little key factors into when to let go, and so we're going to touch on some of those key factors. And the first one that comes up is if there's constant disrespect or abuse, and that could be physical abuse, emotional. It could even be verbal. It could be sexual. There's all
Spiritual. A lot of
spiritual.
spiritual.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah.
So if your relationship is involving any form of abuse, again, physical, emotional, verbal, sexual, spiritual, it's really going to be crucial that you recognize that it's never okay. Abuse is not okay of any sort.
No, it's not.
And even if the other person apologizes over and over, you can pretty much expect that the cycle of harm is going to come back. And that's going to be damaging over a period of time.
In apologizing over and over for the same behavior is not an apology.
No.
It's an excuse. And it's like when I would apologize to Kathy before we got in recovery, my mentor told me this to save me emotionally. That Randy, your intentions were all very well grounded.
Yeah.
Right. Every time I'd apologize to Kathy, I'm not going to do it again. I'm not going to drink. Mm-hmm. It was truth, but I just didn't have the power to stop.
Yeah.
I had a lot of little things inside of my head that were controlling me. So just know that when Kathy and I relationship started to heal was when I owned up to all my part in what was going on. Number one, I didn't blame Kathy for it. And she started seeing the action that I was taking. I would make my amends, which is an apology without saying I'm sorry. It's an apology with action to follow.
Right. Right. But if you are
That's
in a
crucial.
relationship with somebody who is just constantly apologizing afterwards, that it's going to, and they're not willing to change, that cycle of is going to be harming and damaging to you. And the other part of that is disrespect.
Yeah,
You know,
very
if,
much
if
so.
there's constant disrespect in the relationship, they might be belittling you, disregarding your
Yeah.
feelings. If there's boundaries and they need, they're breaking those boundaries over and over. We're going to talk about boundaries a little bit more, but that's a strong indicator that the relationship is unhealthy. If you feel that and you see that, that's not a healthy relationship.
No, and nobody should be disrespected.
No.
If you're constantly being emotionally abused, if your partner's hitting you, and believe it or not, sexual abuse in a marriage happens all the time. That's being disrespected. And we don't want to do that. So if you're being disrespected, now, real quick, what happens is with a lot of people, they grow up in a household where that's all they see.
Yeah.
And so for them, that's normal behavior. And the reality is it's not
It's
normal
not
behavior.
okay.
It's very disrespectful and it's
Absolutely.
very abusive and
Right.
very emotionally damaging.
Yeah, well, that's good. And so what's another area of letting go of when you need to let go of a relationship? And that's lack of support,
Yeah.
lack of empathy. If there's selfishness or neglect involved, it's not healthy. If the other person's constantly self-centered, they dismiss your needs, they fail to offer support when you're going through a difficult time, that relationship may no longer be fulfilling or emotionally healthy either. These are hard to talk about, but necessary.
Even that last thing you said, if they're not giving the emotional support that you deserve, right? Or I hate the word entitled, but are entitled to as a spouse, right? If they're not providing that to you, that's abuse.
Well, this could be a partner. This could be a family member.
It could be a family member. It could be anybody. I mean, the thing is,
a parent,
right? And again, the other party's doing all they know how to do, but we have to be careful that that's very disrespectful. Right. There's times when we're hurting, and I'm gonna say it. I just experienced it last week. We just had to put down Hazel, and man, it killed me for a week watching my dog suffer. But Kathy was there to support me through the whole thing. She understood. She was struggling too, but she knew my relationship with Hazel, and she knew how much I was struggling. But she was there. She wasn't ridiculing. No, it's just a dog. She never did none of that.
No.
She understood, and she was hurting just as bad as me.
Yeah.
But I showed a lot different.
Yeah, you showed up a lot different.
A lot different. It was hard.
Yeah, and the other thing that falls under the category of lack of support or empathy is emotional drain. If you feel like you are emotionally drained in the relationship, you're unheard, you feel unimportant after spending time with a person, that's another sign that the dynamic is very imbalanced and it's very unhealthy. So be aware, be keenly aware of how you feel after you have sat with a person or been with a person for a while. And if you walk away from that visit or that time together emotionally drained and feeling unhealthy, then that's not a relationship that you want to continue in, because that's just going to lead to more long-term drainage in you. And then it starts affecting you not just emotionally, but physically. Your body will start feeling the effects of the emotional drain that you're feeling.
Oh, I ran across this today, some notes I wrote down. It's got to fall in perfect right here. So here's 3 questions to ask your spouse. Very important.
It could be, a spouse or anybody.
A spouse or a partner. Yeah. We always say, well, if we say partner, we're referring to a living partner or a spouse.
Yeah,
we're just going to clarify it that way. Okay.
I just want to make sure we hit all those ears.
Right, so 3 questions to ask your partner. 1, what is something that you've been telling me that's important to you that I keep missing or overlooking?
That's good.
Right? That's a very good question to ask your partner, right? Number 2, what is something that you need from me that I struggle to give you?
That's good.
Okay. 3, what is something you feel I haven't fully accepted about you? Now, that's good. That would be Kathy asking me those questions, or me asking Kathy those questions. Okay. These are so we can't post these. I'll put them on the website. Okay, I'm gonna put these up on those. That'll help you in that area what Kathy was just talking about.
Yeah, no, that's good. Those are great questions. So then the next category we run into is toxic patterns and manipulation. I hate to say it, but I was a manipulator to a certain degree, not only to myself, but to you. But if there's gaslighting or manipulation, and gaslighting was one of those terms I was just like, what is
What is?
gaslighting? Yeah, so the definition of gaslighting is a psychological manipulation of someone into, did I type that right?
Yeah, you know, you question
Into
into questioning
questioning their own perspective of reality,
all perception.
own perception of reality.
It, it,
So if somebody is questioning their own perception of reality, there's a good chance that there's psychological manipulation or gaslighting taking
and
place.
my stepfather and mother were, and I just now realized it because gaslighting wasn't a term back then.
Yeah.
They were the best at gaslighting
Yeah.
me all the time, always questioning my reality, my perception of reality.
Yeah.
And their perception of reality was the ones that was skewed, not mine, and
Yeah.
that's why they attacked me so much.
Yeah. Yeah. So if the person makes you doubt your own reality,
Yeah.
or they belittle your feelings, or they manipulate you into doing things that you don't want to do, like something that might be against your will, that's a serious red flag. So fly your flag. Don't be afraid.
And I'm gonna say it because transparent. In many ways, I gaslighted Kathy for a short period of time in our marriage.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and I regret every minute of it. She knows that.
Yeah.
I made my amends to her, but
Yeah.
it can be done in really, really subtle ways.
Yeah, absolutely. There's times I was doing it, didn't even realize I was doing it
Exactly.
because it became such a normal
Yeah.
bad habit. Let's put it that
Yeah.
way. The other area of this is unsolved conflict. So
Unresolved conflict.
Yeah, unresolved conflict. So if issues are never addressed, you have an issue, you don't talk about it, and then the repeated pattern of conflict keeps coming back, and there's no resolution or change, it might be time to reevaluate that relationship as well.
And unfortunately, that's part of communication failure, right?
Yeah.
Which Kathy and I, every client we have, that's their number one thing. We need to learn how to communicate. And I've said this before, 98% of divorces, that's the number one reason for divorce, because the communication's terrible.
Yeah.
So
they've never been taught or learned how to.
No, exactly. So we lose our voice and we're afraid to say anything because of the way that, first of all, growing up, we spoke our feeling, our opinion, we were gaslighted, right? Or put down.
Yeah.
So we're fearful of that going into the relationship. And then when our partner does that to us, it's like, well, see, there it is. My voice don't mean nothing. So
then we don't say anything after that.
You don't say anything after that. Yeah. And therefore you have a lot of issues in
the unresolved conflict.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Nobody talks about it. It's like the elephant in the room.
Yep.
And then our next little category is constant stress or anxiety.
Yeah.
And this is huge. This is where you have to be keenly aware of how your body is feeling. So if you're feeling anxious or you're feeling uneasy, and if thinking about that person or being around that person brings anxiety, brings dread upon you, maybe you feel tension, it's a sign that the relationship's not healthy for you, and you deserve to feel safe. You have to feel safe. We have to have peaceful. We have to feel like we're respected in that relationship. So if you feel any of those things, maybe it's time to reevaluate that relationship.
And I'm going to say this. Young adults, teenagers, and children, if you're feeling this, and mom and dad, if you're the one creating that, you're the problem. They deserve to feel respected. They deserve to feel safe in their own home.
Yeah,
it's a safe place, peaceful, right?
Create that for them.
I know I certainly did in my home, but so we have to create that even as children, even for our children, when they're toddlers, they're young, they're adolescents, because if we don't teach it there, then it's going to carry in.
They'll just repeat it into their adulthood.
Every aspect of their adulthood.
Yeah. So we have to help change that. Even though we might have grown up in a home like that, we don't have to keep doing that.
Exactly. So there are those out there, and sometimes, like Kathy, like myself, it took a long time, but I said, I got to end this, right? Yeah. So there's some people that can go, I'm not going to do this anymore like this, and they can change fairly quickly. Yeah. Quickly. And then there's others, and there's a lot of them that it takes a long time
to do. So if you're aware of it, make the change now. And then the next category is if you feel stuck or you feel controlled in the relationship, lack of personal freedom. That's so important. But if you feel like if you feel like your relationship is restricting you or it's controlling you, it's like your personal growth is being hindered, that's a signal that the relationship is unhealthy as well. So you want to be able to feel free to grow and to be yourself in that healthy relationship. And if you can't, You got to take that into consideration.
Well, Kathy's talking about all sorts of stuff
Mm.
that I did to her.
Mhm.
And unbeknownst, we didn't, this is just, but it's a flat.
Our knowledge now.
It's our knowledge now, because she never knew how to talk about it. She never was able to tell me, but I could take off for a week and go hunting. And she wouldn't question it. Yeah, okay, go. But she was like, get out of here. I can't, right? But if she wanted to take off for a weekend with her girlfriends, oh no, I wouldn't let her do that. So when we got in recovery, I remember Kathy wanted to go back to New York to see her sister. And I said, go, have fun. And I dropped her off at the airport. Are you sure this is okay? I said, go, Kathy, you deserve this, right?
Yeah.
And it was hard for me. I'm not going to lie, but I let her go. She had time of her life. I didn't pester her. And here's what I heard from a pastor. If you have your wife's wings tied and you're not letting her fly and grow, you need to clip the ties to her wings and let her soar as a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Or let your husband soar as a man.
Right.
Right? This is critical. Right? We don't own our husband or our wife. Mutual respect with each other is very important. Or our partners.
Yeah. Right.
Sorry. Or our partners. It's mutual respect. Right? But you have to learn how to converse. You have to learn how to have these hard conversations. Yeah. You have to learn how to walk through the fear of saying, okay, I trust you, go. A lot of my holding her back was nothing to do with her. It all had to do with the lack of trust and everything that happened to me as a child in my life.
Yeah. And I'm just going to say right now, I think we close out with this towards the end of this, but one of the reasons that I think this hits home for us is a lot of these things, both of us were guilty of. But I say but because we made a choice to do work to change.
Yes.
And so, just because you might be in a relationship with somebody who you're struggling with this and you don't know how to get out of it, if the other person isn't willing to do the work necessary, then it's going to be one of those situations where you might want to get out of it, because you need to both be willing to look at yourself, self-reflection, realize where you're going wrong, and make a conscious decision to get help and to help yourself and each other.
That's the deal. It's not one-sided.
Yeah, can't be one side.
We were told this when we started therapy, and we mentioned this. It's one of the first things we ask our clients. Number one, do you still love your partner? Mm-hmm. And most of them will say, yeah, a little hesitation, but that's all. I don't care. They love them just a little bit. And the second question is, do you both want this relationship to work out? Yeah. If they say yes, then they got hope. If one says yes, the other says like unequivocally no.
It makes it very
difficult. So it's a choice we both have to make, right? And it's not easy. And like Kathy and I always say, the relationship isn't broken.
No.
It's each individual bringing their brokenness into the relationship. And we talked about the unmet needs. Mm-hmm. When did you ever, before you got married, talk about your expectations and your needs to your partner?
Yeah.
I don't think people do that. We're pretty much, when we marry people, we're going to make sure that they sit down and talk with each other before. What are your expectations of yourself in the marriage and of your partner, and what are your needs?
Right.
Non-negotiables. Now they will change over time.
Yeah.
And so you have to be able to adapt.
Absolutely.
But if I don't know Kathy's expectations or needs, how can I fulfill them?
Right.
And vice versa.
And that's where it's really, really important to avoid these, having those healthy conversations help you to avoid some of this conflict in these difficult, unhealthy relationships. So unhealthy relationships can be healthy if both parties are willing to put the work in.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So then we have just a couple left under this category, and that's, if it's a one-sided or an unbalanced relationship, if we're lacking, say that word, because I cannot say that word.
Reciprocity.
Reciprocity. Thank you. So, but what is reciprocity? I mean, I saw that word and I was pronouncing it all different, but it's really when one party will respond to a positive action or favor with another positive action or favor. It's not like, I'll do this for you if you do this for me.
For a lot of people, in the back of their mind, it's like, what's your motive? Right. Oh, well, I'm doing all this for you. What are you going to do for me? And it happens in relationships a lot, in marriages, relationships, at work, right? I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine. No, reciprocity is, I'm going to reciprocate the same kind of behavior that the same kind of good behavior that you're going to give to me.
Right.
If you're going to treat me with disrespect, right, and cruelty, I want nothing
Yeah.
to do with you.
Yeah. A healthy
Right?
relationship is going to involve mutual effort.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You're both going to be
100%.
willing to put in the effort for
Yep.
that. You can't just, I'm going to do it if you do this. It's not going to work that
Nope.
way.
No.
And then the last one we have is if you're already tired, or excuse me, I take that back. If you've already tried to address the issues, and if there's no willingness to change, this is where it becomes challenging. Because if you've made efforts to communicate your feelings, if you've made efforts to set boundaries, to address the unhealthy aspects of the relationship, and the other person isn't receptive, this is what we were talking about, or willing to change, the relationship may no longer be worth continuing.
No, and several of our clients come to us and it's like, well, he or she said they're going to do this, and then we go and they don't do anything they're supposed to do, and they say they want it, but their behavior, okay, we understand, but the way Kathy and I work is that if you're going to sit with us and we're going to give you the tools, we're going to give you a rope. We're going to give you enough rope to hang yourself. And if it comes down to it, Kathy and I, we're very discerning when it comes to this. If you keep on coming here saying, yeah, and the one partner seems to be doing all the work, and they come and go, he ain't changing at all. He says yes when he gets here and he goes home and he doesn't do it.
Right.
It's not going to work.
That's going to be challenging.
It's going to be challenging, but we will do everything in our power in a loving way,
to redirect.
To redirect.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so all of these things, yes, these are a lot of red flags, yellow
Yes,
flags,
yeah.
might be some caution flags, but all of them can be corrected as long as both are willing to make the changes
Absolutely.
that they need.
Right.
So let's say
it's change, consistency of change over time.
Right.
Change of behavior, actions, and words over time. That's
yeah.
going to prove.
Yeah, and there's no end to that time. It's
No.
just going to have to be some
The rest of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say you're in a relationship and all these red flags, yellow flags are flying. So, and you've tried everything and you just feel like you need to get out of this relationship. How do we let go of this unhealthy relationship without being mean or rude?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Really good question.
Then there's several key factors in this. And so the first one we're going to talk about is how are we have to be honest,
right,
but we also have to be compassionate.
Very compassionate, yes.
We have to have clear communication. And, when you're ready to let go, you have to be honest about your feelings without attacking or blaming the other person. And it might be an example of how you might communicate is something along the lines of, I realize that this relationship isn't healthy for me. And I think it's best for both of us to go our separate ways.
And in that statement, did they say you once?
No, not at all. And that leads to the second category of using I statements. So communicating I statements is going to be so necessary. So you have to speak from your perspective and avoid blaming the other person. So you want to focus on how the relationship makes you feel rather than criticizing the other person, their actions, their behavior, their inactions, whatever that might be. So an example of that might sound like, I feel drained when we're together and I need to prioritize my mental and emotional well-being.
Versus when I'm with you, you make me feel drained, right? And you need to start prioritizing your mental and emotional well-being so that I can work on mine. No. That you go back down. And the clear communication, blaming other people. I'm going to come back to it because I lost my thought.
Yeah, that's okay. But I think the key is when we speak in the I statements perspective, it eliminates defensiveness from the other person and the walls stay down.
So on the communication part, this is the difficult part because remember, we talk about lack of communication.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes when we work with clients, we want them to speak up, speak their truth. And they go into it scared, rightfully so.
And something like this would put even more fear into you. You have to do something hard.
And so what happens is they're going to do their best to come at them with compassion, but sometimes because it's brand new to them, they've got the fear. It's going to come out harsh.
It'd be sideways.
That's just part of the learning curve, right? And we'll work with clients and say, well, they came at me with this, or they told me about this, but man, they were harsh. And it's, you know, so the question becomes, what was your tone of voice? What was your facial expression?
Mhm.
We're proud of you for speaking your truth and speaking your voice, which is what we're working on.
How can we do it a little
How can we
differently?
do it a little
Yeah.
different? Now we want to work on your tone and your facial
Yeah,
expression.
that's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something new for everybody. So
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
we've all experienced
Yeah,
that. Yeah. The other one we want to talk about when we're having to, speak up is we have to be able to set boundaries clearly and decisively. And so that's the hardest part. Sometimes it's easy to set the boundaries, it's harder to hold on to those boundaries. But respectful boundaries would be if the person is not receptive to the idea of ending the relationship, you have to be firm but kind in setting those boundaries. So an example might be is this: I've made my decision and I need to take some space in order to move forward.
So Kathy, who are the boundaries for?
The boundaries would be for me. If I was the one that was setting those boundaries, they're going to be for me. They protect me. They're not to keep others out. They're to protect me and my well-being and my mental health.
So you set a boundary, but I keep breaking it, and you keep coming, and you don't hold true.
Hello, that's my responsibility
That's
then.
right.
That's my fault.
It's like with a child. I discipline my child, but he keeps doing the same thing over and over again. Well, we need to look at the way you're disciplining your
Right.
child.
Yeah.
Something ain't right.
Yeah.
Right. And likely it's because when it comes to disciplining, let's just say, okay, I'm gonna remove
Mhm.
your Xbox.
Yeah.
Right. And you keep doing this. You got, for 1 week, right? He does it again. You take it away in 2 days. You give it back to him.
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to respect you?
No. No.
Right.
So
Same thing in a partner relationship.
Yep. And especially when you're needing to break something
Yeah.
off and,
Yeah.
and end something, you have to be very clear with those boundaries. And then the other part of this too, which is so, so key, is you don't need long explanations. You don't owe anyone any
No.
lengthy explanation for your decision,
No.
because you have the right to end that relationship without justifying
Yep.
it. And, direct statements those are enough. And I think what happens, I have been guilty of this, is I over explain, but I think in the process of over explaining, there's always that potential to leave the door open just a little bit,
Mhm.
where there's not clear communication. And so the other person, because of this long, detailed explanation, may be reading into the fact, well, I'll just be quiet and not talk to that person for a couple of days. Everything's going to come back to normal again.
Mhm.
So be
Hey.
short and direct in your explanation of your
And
boundaries.
sometimes when we over explain, like you said, we leave that door open because we might say something in over explanation, which I just saw a door.
Yeah.
I just saw. So if I just back off for a week or two, she's going to be okay.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. Yeah. And the other part about when you're having these hard conversations, inevitably you're going to have some pushback.
Absolutely.
So you have to be ready for the pushback. You don't want to get swayed. You want to be able to be, again, direct. But if the other person does try to guilt trip you, manipulate you, or pressure you into staying in the relationship, it's important to remain firm in your decision. So you have to be calm. You have to be assertive, but avoid engaging in arguments or trying to convince them.
Absolutely.
That's not your job.
Don't stoop to their level.
No, that's not your job, is trying to convince them. They have to learn to accept what you're telling them, and they may not right away.
No.
That's okay, but don't get swayed or convinced just by their actions of trying to pursue that.
And again, integrity is a big part.
Yeah.
It falls in place right here. You have to keep their integrity intact, as hard as it might be.
And your own.
And you can say, look, I'm not a doormat. I respect you as a person, however you want to word it, but right now this relationship is not helping me. It's hurting me. And I love you. I'll always love you, but we can't do this anymore.
Yeah, and the other part that ties in as with some of that pushback is you don't have to over apologize. It's okay to express your empathy, but over apologizing can make you seem uncertain, kind of wishy-washy about your decision. And you're allowed to prioritize your needs.
Right.
So this is an opportunity where you don't have to over apologize, because you want to be strong, you want to be confident, you want to be bold in your decision. And if you start over apologizing, that kind of breaks down that strong boldness that you're carrying.
Yeah, and Kathy's been she's real good about this. Not me. She's really good about this. It's like we have a little disagreement, right? And first of all, for anybody to apologize is really difficult for very many people, right? And so she'll apologize, and I'm the one that keeps going, right? And she'll go, Randy, I already apologized.
I've
She didn't say I'm sorry again. She
no,
says, I've already apologized, Randy. It's like,
so that would be, but that would
Randy,
be a great example. If you're
exactly.
having to do that, you can just remind him, I have apologized. You
Yes.
don't have to go into
Nope.
details. You don't have to have a long explanation because that gets you in
Nope.
trouble. That gets you in trouble.
You know your truth and speak it with love.
Yeah. Yeah. And then this would go for anybody that's in this situation for both parties is, be prepared for emotions. Hello.
Hello.
It's not easy to say, I'm sorry, this isn't working and I have to take care of myself. You might have emotions with sadness. There can be anger, confusion, disappointment, grief. There's so many things, and you might expect the other person to have an emotional response, and that's okay. Your only responsibility is to stay calm and empathetic, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you're maintaining your boundary and remember that their reaction to what you're sharing is about them, not about you. And we have to allow them to have that. It doesn't make it wrong just because they're upset and they're angry or they're confused or sad. That's okay. Let them have that emotion. Those emotions are things they have to process. It's not for you to fix.
No, and oftentimes if they lash out at you, it's because these emotions are so overwhelming and they don't know how to process them.
Right.
So the only real resolution they have is anger, and they come back at you with a lot of negativity, right? So it's that old saying, and they've asked me 1,000 times, how do you do that? Don't take it personal, right? It has nothing to do with you whatsoever. If you break off the friendship relationship with love and kindness, that's all you can do. Let them own their own emotions and feelings. That's okay.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Don't fall into their trap.
Yeah.
Okay.
The biggest key in all of this when you're in that is to make sure you stay compassionate.
Yes.
Showing kindness without compromising your own needs. That's really, really important for yourself. You can acknowledge their pain, but you don't have to be responsible for their
pain. Exactly.
Yeah, something's really key.
Right.
And then as we kind of get down the list here, the next one is give yourself permission to walk away.
Yeah.
You don't need to revisit that decision over and over again, because once you've made the decision to end a relationship, you want to avoid falling into the trap of reconsidering or second guessing yourself. If there's anything you need to clarify, do so from a place that's with strength and self-respect. This is where, self-reflection comes in, maybe journaling about it. Because if we start getting into our own head and second guessing ourselves, we're taking a big chance of breaking down our boundary and giving in.
Absolutely.
And that's not going to help our mental health.
I know that's something that I've had to work on really, really hard, is to walk away. And I've been doing it lately. And it's just like I get to the point, it's like conversation's over and I walk away. And it stops the problem right there. I mean, before I'm going to prove my point, she's going to prove her point. Oh yeah, well, it'd be this back and forth, it would go nowhere. So I just finally got to the point, it's like, boy, you got to shut up. Just walk away from this right now and just end the conversation. And because most of the time, we're in this heated argument over stupid stuff.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it. It's not even stuff that's worth fighting for.
Yeah.
Right. So learn to walk away. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. And then the other part of that walking away process is being able to limit contact afterwards. That's going to be really important. So give yourself space and time to heal and limit all contact. And if it's a family member, that's a little harder, but you have to set some clear boundaries if it's a family member on how your communication, what it might look like. But you have to remember your well-being is your priority, not how the other person's feeling or acting or reacting. It's your well-being that you have to make a priority. And then the next one we have is to end on a neutral or positive note, and that's going to be really key. There is a possibility, and it's only if applicable, that you might want to leave the door open for future healing. It doesn't mean you have to, but if the relationship is not abusive and there's potential for reconciliation in the future, you can do something like that. But what you might want to say is along the lines of, I care about you, but I just need space right now. maybe in the future we can reconnect, and after we've both had some time to heal and to work on ourselves. And I think that's something that is fair, but don't make that promise, I guess is what it is.
No, you don't make a promise. And this is something that's really critical, and it played a big part in my relationship with my mother,
Mm-hmm.
right? She was extremely, extremely toxic. When I got in recovery,
Mm-hmm.
did all my step work, did everything I was supposed to do, I called her up and I made my amends to her. I forgave her for all the harm she'd done to me. And I even made my amends for being a rebellious teenager. And I forgave her.
Yeah.
Right. She was, I remember when I went into Betty Ford, I called her up and said, Mom, I'm getting help for, I'm in Betty Ford for my alcohol. She goes, you never had no problems, did you? And I go, oh, Mom, come on. She goes, oh, that's right. You were terrible. I go, oh. And then she says something else. I hung up on her. But through the course, we did try to make it work. And she became so toxic at my own daughter's wedding. I walked up to her. She didn't even know who I was.
Yeah. And the bottom line is that sometimes you're going to have that and you're going to have to make a decision.
You're going to have to make a decision. So I left the door open, right? We just, no more. We can't. She was hurting our kids. She was hurting us. We said, okay, fine. We're going to leave the door open, right? But every time she would try to contact me, it was always blaming me and a lot of toxicity stuff. So I finally got
repetitive
cycle of just blaming me for everything that happened. So it got to the point where it's like, okay, I can't. I was told by my therapist and people that were meant to me, don't answer the phone, don't return the text, don't look at text, let your wife do all that. Got it. So several years into recovery, she decided she wanted to reconcile. And it was my therapist actually read. She read it.
Your door was cracked.
My door was cracked. Okay, because remember, forgiveness takes one, reconciliation takes two.
Right.
Kathy read it first. She said, "Well, she just wants to reconcile." I says, "Okay, I'm going to take it to Deborah, my therapist, and let her read this." And she goes, "Well, this is a good thing because she wants to reconcile." I says, "Okay, fair enough. I'm willing to let that happen, but we're going to do it on my terms in your office, right? This is how this is going to have to go down because she's done so much harm to me." She goes,
you needed to create that safe space.
I needed to create the safe space.
Yeah.
And my therapist says, 100%, you're right. She called my mother and set it up, and she wanted it done like in 2 days. I said, no. You and I need to sit and when my therapist called her back, she says, well, we're going to be out of time. It's the only time I can do it. Besides that, I'm not going to do this if Randy's not going to admit to his part in all the abuse. So there's no reconciliation.
No.
Right. Remember, when we forgive somebody, it's for us, not for them.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they have to be allowed in our life.
Right.
I have to love them because Christ tells me I have to love everybody. So I do.
Yeah.
But I love them from a distance. I love them by not assassinating her character or my stepfather's character anymore.
Yeah.
So reconciliation, you got to be very careful. What's the other person's motive?
Right. You have to really make sure that there is that both parties are healthy.
Exactly.
And that's what it talks about. This is why you have to be able to separate to take time to heal.
And you just said something critical that I forgot to mention. It's absolutely a critical thing. And I'm going to say you must have a mentor, a coach, or a therapist that is going to walk you through this process, because you could work on this and want it to happen, and you get in the middle of it, and the person that wants to reconcile with you is just tearing you apart. They got to be able to say, no more, we're leaving.
Right.
Right. Because you have to have that safety net around you at all times.
Yeah. And that's exactly what what we're going to close this out on is having a therapist, having a mentor, having a supportive, close friend that understands, that is going to be neutral too. You don't want somebody that said, oh, just pat you on the back and say, oh yeah, everything you're doing is right. You want to have somebody that's going to give you some reflective questions.
Absolutely.
And to be able to, so that you can make that proper decision for yourself. And a good therapist, a good mentor, a good coach is going to be able to pose questions to you so that you can make that choice.
So essentially what my therapist told me was this after the whole thing went down. She goes, Randy, this is how reconciliation should have worked. The same way that you made an amends to your mother, the same way you forgave her, right? The same way, all that. Your mother needed to do the same thing with you. She needed to sit down with you and own up to her part in it and her abuse. Now, even in a reconciliation, this is critical. Doesn't mean that you're going to be best friends over.
Right.
My mom had no idea who I was, who Kathy was, or who her grandkids were. And so it's like, even if it's a reconciliation, it's like, okay, this is going to be a very slow process. It's going to take time. I
Yep.
got to learn to trust you again. You don't know me. You don't know my wife. You don't know my kids. That's going to take time to build those
Right.
relationships back up in a trusting and healthy manner.
Right. Yeah. So in this process of all of this, basically, once you have been able to sever the relationship in a healthy way, now it's time to focus on your healing.
Yes.
You have to be able to take time for yourself, because focusing on your healing, you're going to practice self-care, self-compassion as you adjust to life without this person in your life, whether it's an in-love relationship, a close friend, or a family member. But you have to prioritize your emotional health, and you have to reconnect with the things that bring you joy and fulfillment. And we can only do that. It's not like you just separate this relationship and you sever this relationship and you go on with your life. There's time to, it's time to work on yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can't just let go of an unhealthy relationship and go into any other future relationship if we aren't fixing what's caused us to be in the relationship and what we've accepted.
It's like breaking up with a boyfriend or girlfriend or getting divorced and jumping into another relationship right away. Now, give yourself some time to find out who you really are.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? That's
and
important.
To process what it was that kept you in the relationship without seeing these red flags and these yellow flags.
Exactly.
You know, you got to be able to recognize them sooner so that you don't go through so much hurt and pain.
And grief's going to be a part of the separation.
Absolutely.
It's just the way it is. I mean, you know,
get healthy.
You have to get healthy. You know, you think I don't miss the fact that I didn't have a healthy family growing up.
Yeah, no.
That I'd give anything to have, you know, as close to the Leave It to Beaver family, which is not a reality, but I mean something like
something that
where
at least felt like that.
Felt like that.
Yeah.
Felt like I'm loved. I'm cared for. I feel safe.
Yeah.
Those are all things that I think all kids that's all desire. Right?
We all desire. Yeah.
We don't have it. Oftentimes we're left to our own devices.
Yeah.
It's all how that works.
Yeah. So as we kind of close out this podcast, you know, letting go of those unhealthy relationships, it's not going to be easy, but it's important to, it's an important act of self-care for yourself.
Absolutely.
And if you can recognize the signs of the toxicity, being honest and respectful in your communication and setting those firm boundaries, you can gracefully navigate the process without being mean or rude. And ultimately, prioritizing, I know we've said this, prioritizing your well-being, creating space that is safe, healthier, and more fulfilling in the relationship, it's going to help you move forward with peace and give you some strength for your new relationships.
And I guarantee you, is one of the biggest forms of gaslighting you're going to hear from people that you do this with. You're being awful selfish, aren't you?
Yeah,
it's called good selfishness, right? Because there was times in this world where I was extremely self-centered and selfish, right? I got a recovery. Was I selfish?
No, you were. You had to learn how to be selfish from a healthy perspective.
Because I had to take care of myself, right? In order to take care of myself, become a better version of me, then I became a better husband, a better father. I became a better, I could take care of my family a lot better.
It's a process.
It's a good selfishness.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. Wow, that was a lot.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting when we do these because I reflect on our own personal relationship and how we were very unhealthy in a window of our marriage and how we've worked through some of those things.
Absolutely.
And still working on things. So it's good.
Good.
Yeah.
How about some house cleaning?
House cleaning. So we are excited because we are in the middle of March here coming up. Oh, we are in the middle of March already. And we still have a couple weeks left for anybody that is interested in coaching, whether it's relationship coaching, marriage coaching, trauma, addiction, just struggling in life. We are still offering our 20% discount. You get 100% of our services at a 20% discount for our 12-week Heal program. That is going to go through the end of this month of March, and then it'll go back to our full price. So if you are looking to get some coaching services, we have a 12-week program. It's a 12-week commitment, and it's an investment for yourself. Reach out to us at healandrestorecounseling.com, and we'll get back to you to set up a 1-hour, no cost, free, doesn't cost you nothing, discovery session. And in that discovery session, we want to hear about you. We want to hear what your struggles are, and we'll share a little bit about ourselves so that we make sure that we're a good fit.
Yeah, I want to go out on a limb and be really bold right now.
Oh, okay. What are you adding?
What I'm going to add is this, is that we will call you back.
Yeah.
And usually within usually within a couple hours. If you get a hold of us late in the evening time, then it's going to be the next
Yeah.
day. I, again, am hearing over and over how people are reaching out to different therapists in the valley. It happens everywhere, and they are not ever hearing back from
Yeah.
them. We will, I promise you, get back to you in a very timely
Yeah.
manner.
If it's not the same day, it'll be the next
The
day.
very next day. Like I say, the only time it's usually not the next day is if we're on the road, we don't.
Late at night.
Or late at night.
Yeah.
But
We have to have rest time down for
Yeah.
ourselves too.
But we will get
Yeah.
back to you.
Yeah, so-
that's our promise to you.
Yeah. And but yeah, again, go to healingrestorecounseling.com. You can email, it'll send us an email and we'll be right back in touch with you. We also have our books available.
Yep.
Our current Renewing Bonds is available. You can get that through Amazon along with the several others that are on there. And if you are looking to get a PDF copy of our Renewing
Yep.
Bonds book, you can also email us or send a message
Sure.
through our healingrestorecounseling.com website, and we will send you a free, no-cost PDF copy of the Renewing Bonds book.
In all of our books, Healing the Wounded Child Within, 30-day devotional, our
How to
How
Heal
to
and Restore the
Restore a Marriage, Renewing Bonds. We have a third one coming out. All of them are available on Amazon. All of them are available paperback and Kindle. How to Heal and Restore Your Marriage is being done for Audible right now, and How to Heal and Restore Your,
Healing
Healing the
Wounded
Wounded
Child.
Child Within is on Audible as well. So
Yep.
they're all available in different formats. So you can find them on our website as well, but Amazon.com. You can go there and find
Yeah,
all of our books.
Just Google Randy Boyd and they'll all pop up
Right.
there. So I think that's
Well,
everything. What?
If you're listening to this,
Oh.
we want you to share this with at least 5 people that
Yeah.
you know. It doesn't matter. Well, they're never going to listen. Share it anyways.
Mhm.
You just don't know at that moment that they might need to hear it.
And this is a perfect opportunity with this particular subject
Yes.
that if you know of somebody who is struggling and doesn't know how to get out of a relationship or needs to get out of a toxic relationship, this just might give them the keys and the answers that they need.
And plus, they get this before the end of the month. They get that 20% discount.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we're available on Facebook, now on TikTok, Instagram, right?
TikTok, follow us on YouTube.
On YouTube,
We're like
Instagram.
old people learning social media. I'm just saying, I'm still playing around
So
learning it.
do us a favor, follow us, like us, and share us, right? And subscribe to us.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost you nothing. It's
Yeah.
free, and it takes only 1 second to hit the
There
subscribe
you
button.
go. There you go.
All right. We
Thank you.
appreciate y'all.
Yeah,
Thanks
we
for
love you
listening.
guys. Thank you for listening and being
But-
part of our lives.
I want to talk to them about we need more subjects.
Well, yeah, you mentioned it at the
Yeah,
beginning.
I'm gonna do it
If
again.
you have a topic, a question, anything like that, shoot us an email at healandrestorecounseling@gmail.com. Or if you know us personally, you can text us. Any question, any topic, anything that you want to hear about or you just need more answers and more clarity on, we would be happy to research it, add our own input with it, and put it out here on this podcast.
Absolutely. Good.
Yeah.
Man. Okay. Here we go. All right. So we thank you all for joining us today.
Yes.
Remember, take what you want, leave the rest, right? And nobody tells you they love you today. Randy does.
Kathy does.
And what more importantly, God does. Be blessed, everybody. Have a fabulous week.
Have a great week.